Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have big events coming up today, as well as throughout the rest of the week. That's going to be very, very interesting, and I wanted to kind of have some talks with you guys and kind of explain some of the big events coming up and give you guys my perspective on whether or not you should dip into it or not, okay? So we're actually going to go ahead and jump into our first one. There's three that we're going to be talking about, roughly 3-4, depending on how you want to look at it, coming up. And the first one's going to be your Prism event. So I kind of been talking about this with throughout my streams. If you guys have been tuning in, we go live around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Tuesday through Friday. We jam out. We do a lot of things, including variety if you're interested in some alternative games besides Raid, whenever you're just farming on the side or something around those lines. So with that being said, we got Heracles Tribune Heracles is going to be the Unity champion that they're going to be highlighting today, with a bunch of undead champions also associated with them. So basically your undead pool. Now, it is a little unfortunate that there's no Sippy in there, there's no voids or anything like that, but that's kind of on par for what we've experienced with other Unity champion-based events. So it's finally, it's time. I think the next one we're going to get afterwards is going to be the Dark Elf one. They're going to do a designated pull for it, so we'll get around to that when that time comes. But is he worth going for? Well, I think the first thing we're going to work down the entire pool. I'm actually going to kind of go through each one of the sections, and we'll kind of explain from early game to late game to end game, all that good stuff along the way. Anything in between, we're going to talk about it. So, is it worth going for it? I think the answer is it depends, right? What is your priorities? What is your focus? What's your aspirations? For early game accounts, anything you get is really good, and prisms are a great way to kind of pinpoint target getting specific legendaries, and within this pool alone, it's pretty decent, as you can obviously see. But Heracles specifically, if you're early game, you're not really going to have access to a lot of champions, so the benefit of having Unities would be like an investment towards later. Nevertheless, getting this champion could be pretty useful, because him being an undead and his unique mechanic where he's still able to interact even though he is dead is kind of unique. And unique champions are not something that you want to kind of sleep on per se. He is I believe, a defensive-based champion with aura that is good for both everybody for defense, but also really good for undead. Getting extra crit rate could allow some build flexibility, depending on how you look at it. But his kit in general, True Fear, even if he's dead, you can't cheap a dead champion, right? So that's still really valuable. And it's also irresistible if he is dead, so that's guaranteed to happen. But he also heals everybody by 20%. That's nothing to scoff at. Also, additionally, he has an A2 that does 100% ignore of a target's defense. So this is a big hitter. If the target was killed, it revives a random ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter, giving them a chance to get back into the fight. If the target was killed and there's no dead allies, it resets the cooldown instead of this ability, which is nuts because you can repeat it. Now, his A3 giving him the ability to destroy max HP could be useful for some key areas. There's some bosses in Dune Tower you may get some value out of, but also maybe against HP nukers that scale off of HP, that could be really useful for PvP. And then a shield buff that is equal to the total amount of the enemy's destroyed max HP, and then of course with some extra caveats for Unity champions. So, you know, really good as a general spirit nuker, defense nuker, which I don't think there's very many. I think the only one that comes to mind right off the rip would probably be like Ragash for the Skinwalkers. But outside of that, though, that's kind of finite in terms of options, right? That are really good, in my opinion. Yeah, any nuker is really good from a legendary standpoint, and this could be something investable for down the road for your undeads. For mid-game, late-game, this champion, not really too much of a change in the status quo of things. Still kind of like one of the things where it's like a niche scenario. If you have alternative options, you may consider them. But for the end game, the late game to end game players that are looking at areas where they want to improve their experience, whether that's Siege, for example, you know, that could be really, really useful for an undead comp. You know, like that's where you can start seeing you have the champion pool to associate with them, as well as, you know, you're wanting to amplify your experience in terms of wanting to really lock down and prevent champions from being able to capitalize off of them. Now, in terms of meta, Siffy's still relevant, and Roto still finds his place in capitalizing off of utilizing those passives, even though they're a little bit more counterable nowadays, but still, nevertheless, a solid champion. And then partnering behind the fact that you can hide behind a UDK inside that very same faction is very valuable, or being protected by Necro to inject him into some of these fights. Very, very strong champion, as you can obviously see with the very synchronicity or synchronizing faction associated with him. So I think Heracles is worth looking into. It's a nice little nod. Maybe not top of the line, but still nevertheless a pretty solid champion to maybe consider. Also, if you're running out of options for like tankier nukers and you wanted something for Spirit to maybe tackle on that Force Affinity based team that you've been going against more often, then this could be a nod. Now, as for the rest of the crew, we have Battle Khazar, who is a very solid option for various different outlets, whether you're looking for a solo dragon early on, maybe even as you progress in the game, maybe, you know, early to mid-late for dragon, you know, you want to get someone who could just poison the boss out and do the battle of attrition by himself. He is a great boss killer for dragon. Also, poisons being something that he's not too uncommon for, could be in some poison explosion teams, maybe with Theodore or some other champions that you can use for Spider Explosion or something around those lines. There's some synergy there. And then in addition to that, his passive giving a lot more damage percentage could be useful in some very niche comps for Hydra, depending on how you're looking. You're trying to get more damage out of your teams. Well, that passive is very valuable in that regard too. And he also brings a cleanse and heals as well as poisons. It's a little something on top of that, right? So there's some value there. I think nevertheless, it's a pretty solid champion. A little bit dated in some areas, but he finds his way in terms of these niche style approaches. And then speaking of someone who still finds his way in the PvP meta, as a matter of fact, the main reason why I would even want to pull is to empower my Rotos. And this is a conversation more so for mid to late game and maybe even end game players. If you're looking to amplify your faction guardians and get that rounded out, maybe you're looking to get that extra 10 speed or the extra 10% defense that you're looking to bolster up those factions, you know, for undead. This is a great opportunity to maybe invest towards this prism pool, and in particular for Rotos, who is pretty stat heavy. But if you can get him off the ground and get a pretty decent build on him, this guy is a force to be reckoned with. A pillar in terms of being a counterbalance matchup to some of the more well-known duos and champions that you see inside the meta today. His passive is still relevant, even though it's more counterable nowadays. But partnered with Sifty, I mean, he's a monster, you know. Pretty much what you're looking for out of this entire champion pool. Now, if you're looking early game to give you some flex options, I did this before in one of my videos for, I believe it was the Nether Spider. One of the alternative options you can use. Maybe you don't have the Venom Mage. Well, Morgan with that heal reduction gives you some value. She has a great turn meter boosting experience with speed in all battles, aura, as well as a turn meter booster, decreased turn meter, as well as increased speed on your team. Maybe you're looking to give that value from Dark Fae. Maybe you're looking to get that value out of that Doom Tower boss, you know, giving yourself that heal reduction, which is pretty much protected against them, and it's 100% chance. All you need to make sure you hit is that accuracy, you know, requirement. She also has Buff Strip, which is, you know, with the fear, it's very polyable, but you can get some value out of it as a niche way to set up your nukers. Maybe you boosted in, you did your first rotation, you got majority of them down, and you're going that second go round. Well, you may be able to scratch that one champion that so happened to have that stone skin that they get removed. Gives you another chance, right? And then, of course, on top of that, you can be even more overwhelming by doing decreased speed, which is useful in a lot of areas, both PvP and PvE oriented. Very solid, you know, decent base speed, you know. So a nice little booster to maybe work off of if you don't really have a lot of options early on. Mid to late and onwards, it's not as much of a relevance there. Now, I'm going to kind of preface this that things have kind of changed from Charlotte, in my opinion. He also brings those same things with heal reduction, increased speed, and he also brings crit damage, but also the leech. And I'm going to go ahead and say this now, this champion might be super valuable for content like maybe Chimera, you know, those late game to end game players, maybe even mid if you're still dabbling with it early on. This champion may be able to help you cover a lot of trials, along with some of these other champions too as well. You got the decreased accuracy, that fear. These champions could maybe provide some value there for you. So you could still get your momentum in these trials and progress in Chimera, but unorthodox picks that maybe could be worth an evaluation, you know? Now, are they going to be the best? Obviously not, but that may be something room for some tinkering, room for some consideration when you're doing your choices on what you want to invest towards on your account. So, Faction Guardians, obviously, I would say yes, go for Prism Pool events. If you're looking to do specific champion empowerments, this is obviously going to be a great opportunity to do it too as well. But then also, you know, looking at some viability on these champions, whether it's PvP or PvE, is what I would also consider when you're making these choices. Now, for epics, we also say that, like, when it comes to progression, epics carry the game. Obviously, if you're still looking to make that clan boss team work for yourself on Demon Lord side, Seeker's a great turn meter booster that syncs up well with those set comps that are designed, those speed tune comps. Really good option. If you're looking for maybe a lower tier version of a booster that does well, has heals, has revive, also is a pretty decent aura for an epic. Gorgrab's not bad, you know? Or if you're looking for someone who could be an enemy max HP hitter that's an AoE, you still have that Husk, you know? Maybe a pseudo provoker also for that Hydra team that you're doing still. You know, he still provides that value. Then, of course, we have some clan boss damage deals like Anax, who does weaken, decrease defense, and, you know, poisons, which is not bad. And then, you know, the list kind of goes on. Maybe some more niche opportunities where you're trying to, you know, you're going to take a lot of damage, but you're looking to get some heals. Maybe Volkov's passive can help you out. Maybe you need another provoker with decrease attack. Could also be pretty good too as well, right? So, depending on what your account capabilities are or where you're at in terms of progression, there may be some cases where one champion may have a lot of value for you. In this particular case, I think this is a interesting go for. I will say that it's a 6% chance for 94% versus 94% of getting an epic, so set your expectations accordingly. It's like the same thing as a sacred summon. It takes 35, so that's not too bad in terms of price evaluation. You'll get a couple if you buy a couple crystal offers. You can definitely get some in there. And you know, I think this may be a solid one to consider. Not high priority where it's a must grab. I think this one's okay. So, with that being said, we also have other events coming up. If you guys aren't already aware, I think they kind of announced an inside the events coming up soon. We have a 2x as well as a 15 progressive event coming up. 2x primals, which means you're going to get a chance for not only epics, legendaries, and mythicals. They're going to be coming out. So increased chances for those, and that's probably the good time to go for it. So if you have mythicals and you're not primal charge and you're looking to get mythicals, this is the time to pull. This is the best chance we have had so far. With that being said, though, they're also going to increase the likelihood of you being able to acquire specific legendaries, and in them is going to be one Unity champion that could have some niche viability, as well as some other champions depending on what you're looking for. So with that being said, we have Aragos. I'm going to go ahead and do this this way here. We're going to get Aragos, who's going to be our Orc Unity champion. I think he's the only Unity champion in this pool, where he's like kind of synced up with Orcs. If you're interested in him, we did a breakdown video on him plenty of times, and some discussions. I think he really looks really cool, so you're going to have some really good enjoyment out of that. And then we also have, I believe inside the same list, we're going to get Matriarch Zarguna, is another support style champion that does provokes, taunt, unkillable, and then, of course, does a little bit of turn duration of all debuffs. It's like a pseudo cleanse to a certain degree with that A2. Really interesting champion. If you're trying to synergize maybe an orc only type team, maybe you can do that with Aragos if you're going for them. Maybe partner that with that Garrel, that Ashnar that you got, or some other champions you may be interested in using. Could be valuable there. On the top end of this list, though, we also have Wixwell. Although he has been shut down in some senses with the way that they introduced mechanics for Hydra, he's still relevant in that Demon Lord comp. If you're looking for a quick way to get like top chest on something, so from an early progressing account, this is a good champion to go for. Also, in terms of like getting yourself a solid Hydra, so this is more mid-game, late game, you can start seeing some value out of maybe shielding and provoking on an A1 that's pretty much guaranteed once you have him fully booked. As long as you meet those accuracy chests, you know, you can get that consistent provoker up. And then on top of that too, intercept, decreased defense, and that shield that really keeps your team alive. Super substantial, super valuable. This champion has a lot to provide. He's a really good champion to go for. So if you need him, go for him. And then, of course, we also have on our side here coming up in the same Prism Pool event, Molly. Now, she is also accessible through the token trader, although that's kind of like if you have duplicate legendaries and you're converting them into coins to eventually buy her. You could do it that way, but she's also part of this Prism event. A solid reviver, a solid provoker for Hydra, as well as you know, basically a turn meter booster in a sense without being directly a turn meter boost. Whenever all allies get 25% whenever she's hit by a boss, and of course it's 15 on static normal occasions. So like Hydra wise, if we're talking about her there, she could be very valuable in keeping your team going while also being a provoker and a reviver in case you need it, allowing you to get a little bit more aggressive. Now, is she top of line? Maybe not so much, but still a viable alternative option if you're looking for those at play. Now, with that being said, we also have another provoker that also provides a lot bringing to the table, and that is Bavald. I believe it is Bavald the Thorn. He has an A1 provoke as well as an A2 provoke that brings Leech to the table. Strengthen. He also has a chance to heal the ally with the lowest HP by 15% of the damage inflicted. And then, in addition to that, he also has the ability to shield people and heal them up as well. So, really solid provoker support tank type champion. I really do think that he also brings damage mitigation from anybody that has provoke. So against that that decay head that you want to get locked down, You can really pretty much bring some extra mitigation to your team by just having him in play, provoking the enemy. So really good champion in that regard, you know? Maybe not top of line either, but still a viable alternative option if you're looking for more provokers. Now, with that being said, we're going to switch over to our more meta provokers if you're looking for Hydra content in our Void selection. So, Grisor, Iron Gut, one of the best enemy max HP hitters that brings provoke, increased res, increased defense, as well as a shield. And I also believe he does a little bit of healing, and he prevents fatal hits, right? This champion brings a lot. Now, I want to kind of take a moment here and pause. In particular, an area that I could see being some super valuable would be, like, this is more for, like, late game if you're looking to push Trials and Chimera. Increase resistance, increase defense, enemy max HP hits, as well as being able to provide shields. These are all valuable in various different ways. There's Trials that are dependent upon you doing a certain amount of damage. His A2 is going to give you that. Being able to provide increased resistance or increased defense, at the very least, I know for sure is good value. Because that is one of the trials that you're going to need to accomplish. And then on top of that too, just giving shields, which is another trial, is great. On top of the fact that he's able to do buff extensions as well as healing for the team that you're with inside Chimera is all stuff that I would say you should be interested in. Sustain being very important. Trials are very important. And then, of course, getting some damage out. Not too bad. Grisor provides that, and that's a really good nod, you know? On top of that, too, we're going to have something that's a little bit more unorthodox. There's a little flip on the script here. This one's going to be our dwarf sides. We have Torment. If you didn't get him during the last year's Titan event, they had a dedicated one for him, similar to the one that we just went through with Sir Nicholas. This champion is available. Maybe you did go for it and you want a duplicate of him. This could be a great opportunity for you to not only finish off that Dwarves Faction Guardians, but maybe even consider empowerment. He's a great champion for countering speed teams. So if you're looking to go fast with like Arbiter or maybe even Shuzhen or champions that like to do a lot of buff-centrics that are like buff-centric type abilities that are not block debuff initially, like Siphi's A2 would not be a quantifying answer here. He has a chance to just lock you out and just freeze you. Now, it is polyable, and a lot of his kit is polyable, but you're kind of playing that gambit where you're playing off a chance anyways. So, kind of a great opportunity to maybe counter some go first meta style approaches and really pack a punch and turn the tide, per se. And he's also not too bad as a damage dealer. I mean, partner with someone who maybe burns, maybe that Gizmac, you can do some pretty cool little interactions with him. Or another one would be like Volcanos, you know, that Unity champion that every single time they boost and do turn meter, they get burned, and then he activates the burns, and then maybe you're freezing on top of that, and then whenever the activations are happening, it's causing him to trigger, and you got like a lot of interaction there, you know? So really some cool options, some interactivity there. And then, of course, one of my personal favorites, although he has been power graphed to Kingdom Come, I would love to see him get buffed, especially since he has the name Soul in his name, Soulless. One of my first Void legendaries I got, a solid provoker for Hydra if you're looking to get started there. Maybe not top of the line, but decent nevertheless. A shielder, as well as a stun chance champion. I think it's bookable up to about a 50% chance. But yeah, he also has a little bit of buff removal, I believe. On top of that, only issue is that it's randomized. So I would say that this champion could use a little bit of spice, a little bit of love. Make him a little overpowered for me, player. Why don't you? Because he has the name Soul in it. I'm down. But nevertheless, this champion is decent as a defensive nuker if you want to set up for him. You can use him as a provoke champion, Hydra. You know, pretty decent. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, he's been a little power crap, but nevertheless, not too bad to start off with. He could use a little bit of an uplift in terms of stats too as well. 97 is pretty slow in today's standards. Being a Void, I think that's even more important that he has some kind of intricate value with himself. So, with that being said, that's the three big events that are coming up right now that are going to be lasting throughout this week. If you guys are going to pull either on the Prisms or on the Primals or for the progressive events in general, I wish you nothing but luck. And let me know, are you guys planning to dip into it? I kind of burned all my resources for the last couple events that we had. We just got out of a 2x Primal, but I'm going to be honest with you. Hey, 4 in a dream, maybe I get that Alaz I'm looking for, that +4, or maybe that Galactic that seems to elude me, or maybe that Arbaeus I'm looking to get my hands on, you know? Or Nais. I would love all of those champions, you know, and maybe I get them all 4, you know? Maybe I'm that lucky. I don't know. We'll have to see. That CC luck kicks in, right? You know what I'm saying? Either way, let me know in the comments below if you guys are going to push forward. If not, are you planning on saving for a particular event in the future, or are you just kind of just chilling out because it's the holidays? I'm all ears. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, always remember, stay ascended.